Well, jeepers! You're listening to Smash or Pass.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another interview on the JayBee and Milly channel. I am JayBee and of course with me is Milly.
Hi.
We have Dan.
Hi.
And joining us as our special guest is Valerio Ventura. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much. And hello, everybody.
So
Glad
it's
to-
incredible. Oh no, thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate the time you've given us today, going through a lot of your career, which is really, really interesting because we kind of almost get a timeline of franchises starting from the 80s and classic Hanna Barbera and then spanning into the recently released Velma show. So very contrasting projects there, but all kind of connected in that universe. So to that end, I want to ask, before your work at Hanna-Barbera and even before your work during the 80s, what led you down that career path of getting into animation?
Well, so since I was a kid, I love comics, and one of my favorite comics was this comic. Sorry, Warner Brothers, which is Mickey Mouse in Italy. That's where I grew up, and which is called Topolino. And so I started drawing that. I started drawing the characters, Mickey Mouse and Topolino, and as a kid, I loved it, and I was pretty good at it. So people noticed that and thought I should go to art school. And so I pursued that and more drawing and drawing and drawing, and being I was kind of, maybe it doesn't seem that way now, but not very social, and I had friends, but I wouldn't go out a lot, and I couldn't go to the theater because I couldn't afford it, and so I would stay home and draw. And I was drawing all the American comics mostly, DC comic, Marvel, and the Walt Disney comic from Topolino. So, I mean, I had never thought about going into animation, but I watched a lot of animation because my grandfather would run his Super 8 about once a year during Christmas, and it would show all the old Mickey Mouse cartoons and all the Warner Brothers cartoons. And yeah, so it's always been kind of a dream to be drawing as a job, but I never thought that could happen. So then I got a few little jobs in Italy doing advertising. It was not a good experience because I wasn't getting paid. So I didn't know how am I going to figure out the business side, because people say they're going to pay me and then they don't pay me. And I see the ad running on the papers. They use the drawings. So it was a little bit of a learning curve because I didn't have, like most of us artists, don't have the basic knowledge of the business that we want to go into. We just can be very, skilled at what we do, but we sometimes don't know how to negotiate or how to manage our business side. So I wanted to learn how to manage our business sides, but I didn't have the source or how to do it. So anyway, long story short, I decided to come to the United States when I was 20 years old. And I packed my bags, and everybody thought I was crazy. And I got here to Los Angeles, and I met a bunch of nice people, and I overstayed my welcome. And but I always had a respect for what this country was. For me, it just took me in, and I started getting jobs, from companies that shouldn't have given me jobs because they knew I was illegal. And then being that I was here in 1981, I started to work into becoming legal, because if you were here before 1981, there was kind of an amnesty on people that were here. So I worked on that and I became illegal, got my green card, and then I met my wife at Hanna Barbera on my first job, in the business. And long story short, we got married. She was in animation also, and I was in animation, and got to work with my first boss was Iwo Takamoto. And so, which at the time I didn't even know that he had worked on Scooby Doo. I'm just like, you know, he's just a guy. Very, very wonderful person. They had gone through so much in his life as a Japanese American citizen. So, and you're just an amazing guy. And then I got to meet Walter Peregoy. Walter Peregoy worked on Scooby Doo and painting backgrounds, which is incredible because he had styled 101 Dalmatian, and then he went into color style. So he went into the Hanna Barbera, and it was just sitting like 10 feet away from me, and I would hear him grumble and talk about the business, and actually he was an amazing human being. And to this day, yeah, I looked at my new paintings on Velma, and I think about these brush strokes, and I go, oh my God, I'm doing Walt Peregoy's brush strokes. So in fact, thanks to and I forget his last name, so I don't want to say, but if I don't remember the full name of the person, but someone made a brush called Walter Peregoy. So when I was on Mickey Mouse Shorts, I grabbed that brush that this artist named Justin made, and then we expanded it and used it on many occasions on our paintings, and some people ask me, I had some kind of those brush strokes from the old Scooby Doo, and we're doing it kind of like not really consciously, but once we got the brush, we were like, yeah, let's use that. Let's try to bring some of that in there, But ending on that question, I got into animation. There was there's a lot of story that I have. Like when I went for the first time to Disney and I brought my portfolio in, and when I was to the security guard at the gate, and I said, I want to work here. Can I give you my portfolio? And the guard is like, okay, I'll forward it in, So, it was like 1982, and, I didn't know how to do all that, and, but I was given something very important. I was given an opportunity. So on the new show, Velma, I work with producers and executive producers that are very keen and work very hard at giving people opportunity. People of all genders and people of all creeds and people of all color. We feel that the most important thing that you can do is assemble a team that is very diverse, not because we need to do that now, but because we feel like that as an Italian immigrant, I come here and I didn't know anybody, but somebody at one point gave me an opportunity, right? And for many other cultures, it hasn't been very easy at all, to say the least. It's been very difficult because of how they're viewed. So, I'm the lucky one. Some guy from Italy. I'm not just a white guy. So, I can tell that it's easier. So we want to make sure that we can make an effort to bring people in that can have an opportunity to express themselves, and there's so much talent out there. We just have to mentor it and refine it and help them to be successful. If they're successful, we're successful. So that's the way we feel about that. But yeah, animation, yeah, I loved it, and then I started working at Hanna Barbera, and it's it's a beautiful thing to be part of it.
It certainly was an incredible story to hear. And I know you were saying there, a lot of the love of art came from comics when you were younger, but you did mention some cartoons as well. Was there any in particular, either shows or movies that you think, inspired you onto this path as well?
Yes. I loved very much watching the Warner Brothers cartoons, and Sylvester, and all those cartoons that it was just too amazing to grow up in that kind of environment. You can just turn on TV. In Italy, there was some programs that ran in the early afternoon. So right after lunch, when everybody's like bloated from eating, and when I fall asleep, I go there and turn the TV on, and there is, like Mr. Magoo, Pink Panther, all these amazing cartoons that I would watch. And then there was also a cartoon called Gustavo from Yugoslavia that I thought it was amazing. There was so many different things that were playing in Europe that have a different slant on the styling, so I think it helped me out in terms of always trying to be fresh in the approach on what it is that I'm doing, which I was allowed to do that by my bosses, Amy Winfrey, who's amazing, and then Charlie Randy, and Mindy, at the other end. They're just, it was amazing. Also, we have fantastic leaders at Warner Brothers, like Peter Girardi, who's just loved the show, loves obviously the franchise, and is helping us out to achieve what it is that the vision of the executive producer is. It's really amazing.
Yeah, oh, it sounds amazing. And I know we've touched on it. Obviously, a lot of your earlier credits were classic Hanna Barbera shows. What was it like to work for Hanna Barbera?
It was like, okay, so in Italy, we don't have the kind of college and schools and high school that you have here in the United States. But I always watched those movies, like Back to the Future, when you see, the high schools and the way the kids interact and all that. Working at Hanna Barbera gave me that environment. It was unbelievable. It was just like, it was just great. It was just like going to school, but being really happy to go to it, because you get to draw and hang out with people that are better than you. Because I try to hang out always with people that are better than myself. I learn more from them, and they elevate the whole thing. So I always try to catch up with whoever it is that I'm working with, because when I can, I work with people that are a lot better. And then Hanna Barbera was amazing because I got to meet Joe Barbera briefly a couple of times, but then I got to hang out a little bit with Bill Hanna. And I have a funny story. Bill had a studio in Peru that wanted to do animation, and they were coming over to visit, but they didn't have a translator. So someone called around and found out that I spoke Spanish fluently. And so he called me in to translate the meeting. And I was like, wow. And then at the end of the meeting, he goes, so how long you been doing this? And I said, yeah, a few years, and but he liked me. So at the end of that conversation, his question was, so do you know anyone that speaks Spanish, understand the animation business, that maybe I can send to Peru to supervise the studio if we decide to partner with them? And I looked at him, and he's just looking straight at me. And I understood what the question was. And I'm like, I don't think so. I wasn't going to go to Peru. I just started in the business, and I wasn't going to travel outside the United States to work, as a producer. But it was a funny moment, and so yeah, we both chuckled about it, and then he went on his way. But it was an interesting moment because the implication was so funny. It's just like, do you know anyone? It's like, no. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I got to meet so many different people, artists, amazing artists. To this day, I know them, and they're great.
That's incredible. This next question from me then might be a bit difficult to answer because you already shared something so cool. But do you have any other highlight memories from working at Hanna Barbera at all?
Yeah, I mean, my highlight memory, I don't know. It's when I met my wife. And we clicked, and it was a beautiful moment. And what can I say? We've been married since, and that was 1985. So, and now we both turned writers, and she published her first book. She writes horror poems, and together we're writing a horror novel right now that will be published in February on Amazon. That's it's one of the best moments. It's I don't know what else I can say.
No, that's incredible. That
meeting her
definitely speaks for itself in that it's like written in the stars, and such a nice way to meet via that mutual interest and mutual career path is incredibly awesome to hear. So I guess going on to some of the more recent things in Velma, and if my eyes aren't deceiving me, I do think I see a little Velma over there on the side there, which is really interesting actually. I didn't know they'd done anything like that.
Okay, so I am not the only artist working on Velma. This is the work of a great lead character designer that worked in development to develop the look of Velma, Adam Fay, and you should definitely have him on your show. And so Warner Brothers made this plexiglass cutout, beautiful printed, and give them to us. Yeah, it was really sweet.
Oh, well, that's incredible. It's really cool to see that little mementos. I love seeing like the things that people have kept or been given from the behind the scenes of things is a really cool timepiece. And of course, Velma almost took the internet by storm when it came out, with a lot of people on one side of the debate and a lot of people on the other, and some in the middle as well. But I want to kind of track that back towards the start. And so for you yourself, how did your work on Velma begin?
Okay, so Amy Winfrey, the supervising producer, she saw my work and liked it and presented it to the studio, and the studio said, "Oh yeah, we know Valerio." And I was still at Warner Brothers at the time, about to be done with working on Looney Tunes and the new Looney Tunes, and so they asked me if I wanted to do some visual development, and I said, "Sure, 100%." And they told me, "Oh, we like this, this, and this." Okay, great. And we started more like a comic book, black line, kind of loose feel to it. And then we ended up with what we have slowly, just like the characters have been going through so many artists, until, we had something that we liked from different artists, and Adam was able to get that essence of what they wanted and put it into these beautiful designs. Same with me. Except for me, it wasn't many artists put together. It was my work in many iterations of what I was doing. And then finally going like, "Oh, we want this, we want that." And I like everything urban and gritty, So the idea that I pitched, which was very much in line with what Charlie Grandi and Amy were telling me, was that Crystal Cove, it's a little bit like Oxnard, California, which is where I live, and it's a coastal town, but it's a little bit like an old sweater. It's a little bit, had its time, and it's past its time. I used to say it's like a Missoni sweater that used to be so beautiful and colorful, and then 30 years later, it's all you've been wearing it too much. And the city, it's always a little bit in disrepair. So wherever we can, we put a little bit of that in there. There's always work in progress, and they're trying to make the town, or maybe they forgot who they were. And the town, it's a little bit, and it's always kind of marine layer looming on the town. So it kind of reflects a little bit of the transition that the town is going through, but then the characters are, they're in school and they're trying to find their way. Everyone is trying to find their way, and underneath this whole story, there's still characters that are trying to identify who they are. Just like we do when we grow up and we're at that age. So yeah, we took a lot of that in the school. When I designed the school, I was thinking of something a little bit more like, not necessarily a prison, but a little bit of that. It's not brutalism, but it's kind of heavy over the entrance, you know, and it's just a little bit a bit claustrophobic. And on the outside, it's like these big blocky cubes that are pressing down on the entrance of the school. And then there is wires everywhere and telephone poles and, you know, all of that I love.
I mean, it certainly made me smile hearing what you were saying there about when you're thinking of doing the school, making it like a prison. I'm sure there's so many children that can relate to that, and certainly that would have made them smile. But I've got to ask, prior to your work as an art director on Velma, how familiar were you with the Scooby franchise?
I am, you know, I've been watching the franchise for, you know, for a long time, even if there was times where, you know, I'm like, well, okay, I've seen already so many of them. So before starting, I went back to kind of look at what it is that was done before, you know. And I didn't look at the old shows because they're right here, you know. And being that I work with Walter Peregoy and that he had shown me so many of the actual original background when I was at Hanna Barbera, I knew what kind of wash he was using for some of this. So I thought to juxtapose some of those washes with very geometric lines, you know, so that it's organic and geometric at the same time. And I love the gang. I love the mystery. I love that they want to solve these mysteries, but that at the same time, there is a lot of these paranormal. It just, you know, it just remind me of some, well, the shows that are airing right now, all the reality shows about ghosts, you know, they're all based on Scooby Doo. I mean, you know, Ghost Hunters, Scooby Doo. You know, I mean, it's like, you know, you just go around these houses that nothing ever happens, but they all get scared, and it scared the living crap out of me too. And so it's that kind of very innocent. And so we wanted to bring it to a level of more like adults, you know, and I know a lot of people, like you said, you know, we're on the other side of the fence, but they're very passionate about it. So.
Well, another kind of question I had, because a lot of what you're saying really does sound quite complex, from choosing the type of lines you use and all that sort of thing. For people that are looking to perhaps get into the animation industry or to learn more about it, what exactly does the role of an art director entail?
So the role of the art director, after I've done the visual development to establish a style, which it's in tandem with the character designers, or in this case, the lead character designer, and what the creators and my supervising producer is looking for. Once we find that look and the look is established, the role of the art director is defined in a few different ways in the industry, but I'm gonna split it in two. The person who's a great designer and a great painter, but doesn't quite know how to manage people. And then the person that is a designer and a painter, but knows very well how to manage people and make people feel like not only they're contributing, but they are mentored to be better and to feel better about themselves and their work. I believe I'm that one. And I am always so animated about this because, you know, we have like awards going on out there and stuff, and I have a beautiful one back there, and Emmy and a bunch more, which they're also important things in our industry to be recognized. But I think some of these award shows, they forget that the most important thing about an art director is how they manage, how they supervise, and how they make sure that the work keeps in that design styling that was determined without putting people down, making people feel they're not worth it, but the opposite, to give people the opportunity to learn in an environment where we feel nurtured, just like I feel nurtured when I talk to my bosses, and they make me feel like I'm learning something every day, you know, and that's number one. That is what I think the role of a supervisor should be, you know.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds fascinating. And just in terms of the show Velma itself, what details were you told about it when you signed up?
When I signed on,
Yeah.
when I signed on, I thought, okay, this is a bit crazy. And I read the first screenplay, and I was like, oh my God, what am I getting into? And I had to also freshen up myself again, you know, with what was going on with Scooby Doo, because I'd been on a superhero show and I'd been on Animaniacs and Looney Tunes. And, you know, so it'd been a few years, and then I was out for a little bit, but it was just, I felt like a little bit scared. And at that moment is when I realized, oh, I'm doing the right thing, because I don't feel that comfortable. This is going to be a challenge. And I felt like, great, you have to have challenges, you know. You can't be just working and, you know, churning out drawings. So that was one of the few things that I felt like, oh my God, this is like scary. And that's really good, you know, to feel that way, because you feel challenged, you know, and it turned out, I love how it turned out, so I'm super happy.
Oh no, that's great. But so would you say that that's the fear and doing that is what attracted you to the project, or was there something in the script that sort of attracted you to eventually sign on?
It attracted me. First of all, I like you know, what Mindy has been doing in the past, you know. I like Amy Winfrey, and I worked together a little bit before, so I knew who she was a little bit. I've seen some of the silly stuff that she was doing on YouTube, and I thought that was great. So it's also for me a question of who the team is. You know, who am I going to be working with? You know, you're getting on a bus for a 20-hour trip. You know, you want to make sure you know who's on that bus. And this is not going to be a 20-hour trip. It's going to be like a year. So that was very important. And then the actual new take on the show was very interesting to me, you know. And yeah, that was probably, yeah, that was very interesting. So I thought, oh, this is going to be great.
That's really
It gives you more
interesting.
freedom, you know, to do your thing.
Because that kind of brings us on to my next question, which is that topic of fear. Because, you know, we mentioned that the show, more than a lot of the other Scooby-Doos, although there are a few contenders in there that did have a lot of doubters and detractors, and a lot of people have opinions, but some of them were saying things that I don't believe that they could fully grasp. Like, you know, this ruins the older shows, or Iwo Takamoto wouldn't have approved of this. But given that those are people that probably never spoke to Iwo, or even were around at the time of the initial cartoon airing, given that you were there in, you know, the heyday of Hanna Barbera, you've worked with Iwo, was any part of that fear, you know, maybe this is too different, or what were your thoughts on that?
No, so that never came up in my head, that it was too different. No. So I can't wait for you that you ask me this question, because this is my answer to all that. So let's put it this way: there is two camps, right? One is super negative and one is positive. Let's say that, first of all, I haven't spoken to these people and I haven't heard their voice, but I saw what they type.
Yeah.
Do you understand the difference? I haven't heard their voice. So how many of those are real people? I don't know. How many of those are not real people? I don't know. But what I know is that they love to be negative. And it's a big, passionate response to the show. So they have all this passion and they're being negative. They love to be negative. And I'm like, I accept all the love that comes, right? All this passion is passion, no matter what it is. So for me, it's like, wow, look how much these people are paying attention. And some of them, like you said, and it's true, they are not stuck with the idea that something has to be always the same. I have some things that I will always like to be the same, but it is an intellectual property. It is a story of this group of people. Should we focus on making new stories with new group of people, with new IPs and franchises that we can create? Oh, I would love that. But the studio decided to take this show and make it different, right? So I don't see all of what they see. I only see, just like in theater, there is a play and then that play can be redone with different actors and nobody says anything, But in animation, passion and testosterone runs high. And so all these thing it's still, to me, the way I see it, it's just so much passion and so much love to hate, as long as it's not something that it's instigating violence or hurting someone mentally. Be as critical as you want, because we do listen, by the way, and the studio looks at that. We talk about it. We have discussions about some of these comments because it's important. We care about the fans, whether they're fans that like to watch, to love to hate, or fans that like to watch because they love. They're all passionate, and they're all making our show like many times #1, and it's a beautiful thing to see how much they care, So that's what I have to say about that. I mean,
Yeah, I do agree. It's definitely probably a more constructive thing. Like, I understand if a show isn't for a particular person or if they don't really like the direction it's going in 100%, because there's a lot of stuff that I'm not a great fan of. But then, the reason why we've got this channel in the first place is to showcase stuff that we are passionate and interested about. And so I think that's always going to be the better constructive use of energy. And I guess a bit of behind the scenes questions that I wanted to ask you is, there's been a few other, issues with the Scooby community, like cancelled projects. For instance, we had Haunted High Rise and Holiday Haunt. At any point behind the scenes of Velma, was there any fear through creatives that maybe the Warner Brothers Discovery merger will cause it to be cancelled or shelves, or did you know that it was definitely coming out up until the very end?
Not 1 second. Not 1 second. The first thing the studio said, we're behind you. Just for right now, just don't listen. Just do what you need to do. We're behind you. So, yeah, I mean, we had questions from, I don't know how many times we had to tell the crew, but the studio was behind it. So, we felt, blessed in a position that we could just do what we're there to do, just entertain, show with this new different take on the show.
Yeah, and I know Warner Brothers Discovery, I forget when this was, it was maybe 2 or 3 months ago now, but they did release like a little press statement saying that there was going to be a season 2 in the works. I don't know if they said at the end of this year or early next year, but there was a bit of speculation on, is that a season 2? Is that 10 episodes that have been already made as part of, you know, season one that's going to be released in 2 parts, or is it a whole new production and stuff? Like, from your knowledge, do you know if it is just you made 20 episodes and another 10 are going to be released later, or have you not heard much about season 2 yet?
No, it's not Netflix. Warner Brothers, yeah, they greenlighted season 1, and then we were all like, you know, holding our breath to see if they were going to do it season 2. And when they announced season 2, we were doing season 2.
No, that's certainly good to hear. I mean, like you were saying, I think overall the kind of key thing to take away from the reception to the series and everything is just passion. I think some people were passionate about seeing some change, some representation, and there was others that was passionately trying to defend, you know, the version of Scooby that we saw 53 years ago. And I think ultimately that is the core of it, was just passion both sides, and ultimately it's resulted in, like we say, the announcement of series 2. So what's just your thoughts on that as a whole, the fact that we do get a second series from this and everything?
Oh yeah, I love it. I mean, obviously, yeah. We're having a lot of fun. We have an amazing crew, you know, and amazing leadership, and we just, you know, love to continue, never stop.
Well, it certainly does sound like there's some exciting things for the future, both with Velma, and I know, as you were saying, you've got that book coming out in February as well. Is there any other upcoming projects, or perhaps either one of those, that you'd like to talk about a little more, or perhaps some other things you'd like to promote as well?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to tell you about my book. So when I was telling you, I grew up in Italy, and I grew up with a lot of comics and crime comics, like Diabolic. And my mom was a big fan of mysteries and giallo, which is like crime books, right? So I wrote a book named Kill Her, this book right here, that I just published. And the story of an assassin living in LA in the 1990s, based on an article that is at the beginning of the book. And somebody took something from her, and she'll go through hell and back to get it back. And that's the story. It takes place in Los Angeles, Rome, Greece, Japan, and so on. It was an amazing experience. I wrote it last year, and it's been something that I wanted to do for a long time. You know, you read my resume, you know that I was a live action director too, and that I've directed commercials and music videos, and which I have a bunch of them on YouTube, not all of them, but on my channel. And so, yeah, I mean, I had a lot of experiences traveling, and I've always been so interested in the life of criminals and psychopaths and sociopaths. So I wrote a book with all these characters in there, and I am preparing slowly, because I'm already writing the second book, which comes out in July next year. But I want to do a graphic novel version. I'll grab this real quick, which will have.
Oh wow!
It's just a rough version of it, but which will have this kind of style to it, and very bloody. And so, you know, that's my passion, is to write. I always wanted to write and be a novelist, and so this is what I did. This book. So if you're interested, check it out. It's on Amazon. Google my name and the title, and or maybe you can put a link down there somewhere. Appreciate it.
Definitely.
Oh no, yeah, that sounds fascinating. I'll definitely be checking the book out. It sounds like my kind of thing. And just for the audience, is there any place that they can go to keep up with your work or the work that you have in the future? Do you have a website or anything?
So I have a website for the book, valerioventura.com. And then you can go to my Instagram too. And I posted a lot of the work that I've done on Velma on there. Recently, it's all about my book. I'm just trying to get my book out, you know. And I also have an animation website. I don't have that link right now, but I can send it to you. And if you want, you can add it to the information down below.
That's absolutely perfect. We'll definitely be sure to add in all of those links and also the links to the book down in the description below as well. Really curious to see if we can get a hold of it in the UK. We'll definitely be really interested in reading it. It sounds fantastic. And the graphic novel too, when that comes out, that's gonna be amazing. So yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. If you don't have any other questions.
No, I mean, that does conclude the questions that we did have for you today. Just overall, we want to thank you for your time that you took to come and speak to us today. And I said this when we spoke to Craig DeLisle, the composer of Velma. Like, we did reach out to a lot of people that worked on Velma, and because of a lot of the online discourse, a lot of people wanted to shy away from talking about it. So, like, just thank you so much for being willing to talk about that, because I'm really curious about the behind the scenes of the show and everything like that. So
Yeah.
it was really interesting to talk to you.
Sometimes you just have to take it with a grain of salt. But like I said, people out there, they can say whatever they want. It's their right. And I love it all. I love it all. So
Absolutely.
thank the fans for watching the show, and you guys for being around and allowing them to have a different window to to see what we do and to connect us with the fans and vice versa. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. And yeah, of course, we also want to thank people watching this and for giving this a listen and for all the support that you've given us for the last season or so. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. You can find all of our social links down below. You can find Dan's social link down below. If you do want to see more, then please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.